everyone. Welcome to At Home with Sally. I'm Sally Clarkson, and I have the biggest privilege in the world to be with so many friends from all over the world who join me every week to listen to my stories, inspiration, biblical encouragement, and I am just so glad that you're here today. Thanks so much for joining me. Hello, my friends. It's Sally Clarkson. Welcome to Tea Time Tuesday. It's a fun time when I get to think about some of my favorite books and recipes and music and just things I've been thinking about. And I just love sharing this time with you. And I love hearing from you and getting some of your comments about your life and about what's going on in your world, or books you've read or music you've listened to. But I'm so happy to be with you today. As it happens, today, as I'm recording this, it's a Monday, and it is the first time in 2 weeks that I've really had any time alone to myself. I don't know about you, but I think that I am probably an introvert, at least partially a total introvert and partially a lover of people and interesting things in life, which sometimes looks extroverted. But I think as I look back on my life, some of the hardest times for me as a woman were when I didn't get any time alone at all. And so I want to read you a quote. I'm going to start putting out Sally Clarkson tea time quotes because I've been thinking a lot about this. But tea time, even if you have coffee during that time, is to me a celebrated time in every day, just like breakfast, lunch, or dinner. You do it. You practice it. Imagine if you took 15 minutes every day of your life to restore, to find peace and to find your center. Imagine what a different sort of life and a different sort of person you would be. It would also be healthier for you. So I encourage you during Tea Time Tuesdays to stop and get a cup of tea or to do something that gives you a little bit of a relaxation. One of the reasons that I haven't been alone at all is that I get to be with Nathan and Kelia right now. And because I spend half of my time in Oxford and half of my time here in the States, I can go months without, though I almost talk to them every day, without talking with them personally. And so we have talked and cooked and talked and cooked. And then we have had a house guest, a friend of theirs, for a number of days. And so I am absolutely enjoying every minute of it. But I realized, oh my goodness, I have a few minutes alone today. And I wondered if you felt that way. Sarah and I have talked a lot. Sarah, my daughter, who had 3 children, 3 and under, very quickly after she got married. And every afternoon around 4 or 5, we always called the time between 4 and 6 o'clock at night the kind of the bewitching hour. My mom found that too, even as an older woman, as a widow. But it's when the sun starts going down in some places, and you have given yourself, you have expended your adrenaline, you've been chasing around life, whether it's teenagers or babies, all day long. And so around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, she found that if she could do 15 minutes to 30 minutes of Little Bear, which is really gentle, which is really easy, had her children look forward to it every day. Okay, let's clean up the toys in our room, and now we get to watch Little Bear. Then it kind of gave her a way to help train them to, clean up some of the Legos and some of the toys. It just became a habit, and the more children you have, the more you get everyone to do the same rhythms, the easier it is to train kids, because the little ones often follow the older ones. But anyway, don't feel guilty if you are not normally using television. If you can she used her computer and did it on YouTube, I believe. But sometimes the sanity of a mama in this modern culture is kind of important. And so it's kind of like that's a tea time stop. She stops every day and has a cup of tea at that time. and breathes in peace. And so I think it's important for us to realize that if we take time to build up happy hormones during the day, to put to rest irritations, to ponder how we can go forward into the rest of the day, it's just so good for you. And of course, I actually do love tea. I learned to love tea when I lived in Europe because tea time meant that you would have time with a friend or with yourself or with a group. And it was really fun. It was really great for my own health. What I found as an almost 69-year-old, I have a birthday soon, is that life for me has never slowed down. It has never stopped. And so for me to manage the adrenaline in spite of the fact that my life is very full and busy has been such an important marker for me as a woman who wanted to get healthy, stay healthy, be strong. All right. Well, I just had so much fun last night. I think I told you yesterday that I was going to go have the chicken wings, and then I did. But it was really fun. I realized that one of the things that I really love about Oxford is what I call pub life. There are many pubs all around, and they're not the equivalent of bars in America, but the pubs around me always have Sunday roast. And in England, we have Sunday roast, which is lamb or roast beef for Sunday meals. And they also have hamburgers or pizza or whatever the pub fare is of their time. But you can reserve a table or go in and you can stay at that table for hours. And I love that. It's family oriented, and we have a couple of really charming ones near our house. And so last night when we went to this little tiny place in near our house, we live in an area where there's 3 lakes, Palmer Lake and Monument Lake, and anyway. And there's a tiny little place that looks out over the lake, and we had a whole big basket full of chicken wings and the best fries in the world that they hand make there. So I so enjoyed being with my people and entering into the world of my much younger children and friends. I really feel it to be such an honor that they include me, and I giggle along with them and have just as much fun as they do. Well, today I've been telling you about the golden era of authors and of illustrators for children, and I would really encourage you to make a library of some of these writers and illustrators, because there's so many different aspects of inspiration that encouraged my life, but also encouraged the lives of my children. And someone I'm going to talk about today is Beatrix Potter. I can remember that there was a time when Sarah and Joy and Phyllis Stanley, a friend of mine, and I decided that we would take what we called a literary tour. So Sarah kind of put together a tour of, I think it was about 8 different artists' homes that we went to in England. And it was so much fun. We all had very little luggage. We wore the same shoes every day to tromp through all the different places. But we had just been staying at a little Airbnb in a tiny little town, and we had planned that day to take a day trip in the Lake District, which is where Beatrix Potter's one of her homes was. It's actually where her farm was, Hilltop Farm, near Sawrey, Sawrey, in the Lake District. And so we had taken a train, and when we got on the train, it was pouring rain. I mean, pouring. You know, our just in 2 minutes, our bangs were dripping wet, our clothes were totally wet. But what had happened is we had decided that we would take a boat from the little town where we were staying to near Sawrey, where we could find Hilltop Farm. And where at Hilltop Farm was the most charming of, to me, It had been refurbished, but it was one of the places where Beatrix Potter had bought a little farm, and she had used it primarily for herself. She hired a farmer to help her learn how to do farming, how to raise these incredible sheep that she would eventually receive rewards for. But it was just the most wonderful day. We literally were in a boat that was going up and down on the waves, and it was pouring rain, and it had water up to our ankles. But it was an adventure. And so we got out at the little end of the boat ride in this tiny little dock, and we walked just about 15 minutes to this little farm that she had at Hilltop. And then we listened to her incredible story. But this little place was preserved in such a way that it was charming. It was a little house that said, "Welcome, come in." And it had bookshelves and old wooden furniture and a charming little kitchen. And it had several places where she had escaped to use as her workshop, where she would, her little office, I would call it, where she would draw and where she would do her own little art pieces. But I just want to tell you a little bit about her. She was born in 1866, and she lived until 1943 into the World War II, which is kind of amazing to me because I think about her as much older. But anyway, she was definitely a woman of Victorian times. But one of the things I admired about her is that she was one of the first women who really, from her home, made herself one of the most respected and wealthy business people in the world at her time. So let's get a little bit about her back life. Her back life was that she grew up in a very privileged family. Her father was a barrister, a lawyer in London. Her mother, as far as we can tell, was a little bit from kind of condescending toward anybody middle class or lower, because she considered that their family was, kind of upper crust. And so Beatrix Potter grew up in a very isolated, beautiful life in her home with 3 different governesses. And then she became really close to the last governess that she had, stayed friends with her the rest of her life. And it was actually through this governess where she would write letters to this woman who eventually had 8 children. And she would illustrate some of the little letters that she wrote to her with beautiful drawings. And as it happens with these 3 governesses over the years, where she and her brother grew up in a home where they were surrounded by nature and beauty. And she loved all sorts of science and the classification of all of these plants. And she grew up learning how to draw these incredible, beautiful pictures. And she practiced it over many years. It was something that she had time to do. If we don't allow ourselves and our children to have time to do natural things, from drawing to gardening to cooking to no matter what your profession is, there's so much in your life that can be expressed through the creativity of organic, real life living. Put away that phone. Put away that computer. Don't fill your life with things that are unreal. Fill your life with things that are real. I know that one of the most accomplished things I ever did was I became a bread baker, and I would do a 6-loaf batch of bread, and I would make 4 of them sandwich bread, and then I would make one of the loaves into either a cinnamon sugar ring, or I would do cinnamon rolls for Sunday mornings or Saturday mornings. And then I would do some kind of either whole wheat rolls to eat with soup, or whole grain rolls, actually, where I learned to use many grains like oats, and I would grind up whole grain rice, and I would grind my wheat. But anyway, I never had been raised to be a bread baker, But it was one of the things that made me feel really accomplished in life. And it was one of the things that my children grew up loving. Now, you don't have to do that. You can do many things. But anyway, I'm just going to encourage you to know that your home is a place where many different inspirations and even businesses can come from. So she drew these incredibly beautiful, detailed little illustrations and would put them in a card to her friend. And her friend said, you know what? You need to turn this into a business. You could write books. This is the time when children's illustrated books are coming out. And so as it happened, when she was in her 30s, she was finally introduced to a publisher. And I'm not going to tell you all of this, but I do want to tell you that her governess was named Annie Moore, Moore. And she was just 3 years older than Beatrix, but she was considered capable of being a governess to her. And so through a long series of circumstances, and I'm going to recommend where you can find out more about this, but she was connected with a publisher who was finally willing to listen to her and believe in her books. And her book about Peter Rabbit, and again, you can look up this information, you can read books about her, but her first book became an immediate success, and with it, she became independently wealthy. Before that time, her parents had kind of had her under their thumb. They had introduced her to many men that they thought were appropriate for her to marry, but she wanted to marry somebody that she actually respected and loved. So she became engaged eventually to this journalist that she was working with, and became friends with his sister. And then, unfortunately, after some years, she wanted to marry this man, but they disapproved because he was a tradesman, not just one of the wealthy people who would identify with them in their class. And so he died before they were able to get married. But she and her family had been going to the Lake District for many years, where they were able to take a vacation. And the Lake District is this wonderful, it's north of, let me think of what you might know. It's north of London quite a bit. And it has many lakes. It's where many of the people that we know who are artists and authors lived. But anyway, they would go there in the summers. And so Beatrix fell in love with it. So to make a very long story short, I want you to watch her movie. But to make a very long story short, the reason why I so admired her is that she took her talent, she practiced it, she used it, and then she became quite a businesswoman, where she opened a little store, and she learned to identify herself with manufacturers, so that eventually she was able to do baby blankets and different items. You'll have to read about it, different articles that made her one of the most successful businesswomen in the world. And then she, of course, The Tale of Peter Rabbit was the first book that she wrote. But then she began to write books like Benjamin Bunny and so many other books. But you will love them, and your children, especially your young children, will enjoy it. But I would say encourage your children who love art and drawing and painting to know her story and to do what she did. But long story short, she bought a number of farms, and she became friends with people in the Lake District who had what they call the National Trust. And the National Trust was developed so that they could preserve land, much like our national forests. And so when she died, she left 4,000 acres in national trust that could never be built upon by industrial, owners or whatever, people who wanted to buy the land to develop into shopping malls or apartments. And so now it is a national trust where people can drive through this gorgeous countryside, where they can stop and have a cup of tea and look at the beauty and see the wild animals. And so as was really fun for Sarah and Joy and Phyllis and me, after we had been soaking wet, we were chilled to the bone. We stopped at a tiny little tea shop that was in her town, had the strongest, most wonderful cup of tea by a little window where we could look out on the lake. And so it will always be a memorable trip for me. And then we tromped back to the boat, to the train, and went on our way to James Herriot's town. And I'll tell you about him later. But anyway, I just thought that might be fun for you. But what I wanted you to know is that I love, one of my movies that I actually love is called Miss Potter. And you can get Miss Potter off of Amazon or in different places. Just ask Google where you can watch Miss Potter. It's a wonderful story of her life. And then actually, because of that, I fell in love. This is the music of the week with Miss Potter by Nigel Westlake. The whole album is beautiful. There's only one or two songs that if you want to, you can cut them out, but it's a wonderful playlist. And then I wanted to tell you today about a really easy recipe that has been a family favorite of mine for years. As a matter of fact, you never know exactly what your children will remember. But I can remember, that if you've read any of my books, especially Life Giving Home or Life Giving Table, that every Sunday afternoon, and we still do it, every Sunday afternoon we have tea time with the family. And again, that is a stopping point where we kind of commemorate our friendship by being together. And everyone in my family learned to love tea. They also love coffee. But whether it's your favorite beverage or not, you can still have tea time. Tea time is more of a ritual. Doesn't matter what you drink or eat. It's more of we're going to stop and have tea. It's sometimes people in the UK call tea their dinner. It's when you have a lighter meal. Or just even the time when you stop at the evening to be together. But anyway, so the other day we were all sitting around talking and Nathan said, Mom, one of my favorite memories is when you or Sarah would make cherry crisp on their tea times. Well, the funny thing is I would never have thought that Nathan would have liked the cherry crisp. I would have thought that whether it was cinnamon rolls or many other things, I thought that was his favorite. So I thought, I'm going to make this is my quick and easy cherry crisp. What I want you to know is that you can, wherever you are, wherever you have access to frozen cherries or canned cherries, you can make the cherry pie filling is what I call it. You can make it into a pie or you can make it into crisp, which is what I do. And it's basically just cherries with some liquid, some sweetener of some kind, and cornstarch or a thickening agent, all mixed together. And I usually, when I make it by scratch, I usually do it in just a little pot on my stove. But more in the past number of years because there are times when most of my time, I would say 75% of the time, I do things by scratch. I do them organically, but I found these wonderful, doesn't even matter what brand you use. I don't think very much. You can test your choice, but I found that the cherry pie filling, it comes in cans in the United States. And again, you can just stir in a very easy make a cherry pie filling easily by Googling any simple cherry pie filling, and it will give you your own recipe and your own measurements, whatever country you're living in. But anyway, what I got in the habit of doing is yesterday I just did one little can because I said, you all, we don't need to eat a lot more calories. We're going to have wings and French fries. So I put it in a tiny little Lotus cup and everybody loved it. But anyway, yesterday I just used one can, spread it over my little 8x8 baking dish on the bottom. And then on the top, I put this little mixture. And if I use 2 cans, then I just double this. But I do about half a cup of quick cooking oats. They turn a little bit softer when you do this. A half a cup of quick cookie dough, a half a cup of flour. I used unbleached flour, half a cup of brown sugar, several dashes of salt. Salt makes sweeter things taste sweeter. And then 4 to 5 tablespoons of softened butter. You can either leave it out so that it's softened, or you can soften it in whatever way you want to. But what you do is that you cut in the butter with this amazing little mixture. And you put your cherry pie filling into your baking dish, and then you just sprinkle evenly this crisp topping on the top. Now, what I found is that when I make this mix, I usually always have enough for one whole other cherry crisp or apple crisp, which I do with I usually always just slice my apples, put a little bit of brown sugar, cinnamon, or just regular sugar, or maple syrup, depending on what kind of healthy mood I'm in. You can look up how to make the filling of an apple pie as well. You can do apple crisp or cherry crisp. But anyway, I put half of the crisp mixing back in my freezer, so the next time I can do it even quicker. But anyway, you spread the cherries on the bottom, put the oat and flour and brown sugar mixture on the top. Again, equal parts of oats, flour, and brown sugar. Dash of sugar, butter. You can sprinkle in cinnamon, but I don't always do that. And then you just cook it, bake it at 350 in America, probably 180 degrees Celsius in the UK or Europe. And you just put it in until it's bubbling, which is usually 15 or 20 minutes for me. You take it out, and you either do a little bit of what they call in England squirty cream, or we call it whipped cream, one of the little cans, or you whip your own cream, or you can do a little bit of vanilla ice cream on the top. And I was absolutely astounded yesterday. They thought I was the most amazing cook in the world. Kelia said, "Oh, I've got to learn this recipe. We could have it every week. It's so good." So it's one of those really well-pleasing desserts that I just thought everybody knew how to do. But anyway, I wanted to end up with kind of a theme that I've been thinking about lately. I think that life is pretty complex. Don't you think it is? Nobody has a perfect family. Everybody has different personalities. You have a different personality. You have different weaknesses and tendencies towards things. And I think that our lives often, as you become older, are different than you dreamed of when you were a teenager. And we're stretched in ways that we never imagined. But I feel like at this point, there are some secrets to living a sustainable and flourishing life anyway that I've learned. And I think maturity and wisdom come over time. Don't expect yourself to ever be perfect, but just become stronger and determined to overcome the issues in your life. And I kind of wish somebody had tutored me kind of in the ways of wisdom when I was much younger. But one thing I've been contemplating about, something I wish I could give to women, is to understand what a poison, just a moment, my phone is ticking. Anyway, I wish that I had understood what a poison, what a waste of time, that sudden anger and being frustrated with people and lashing out and losing our temper. Because if you can learn how, in the power of the Holy Spirit, say, Holy Spirit, teach me what it looks like to become a person who, when that feeling of anger flares, I look at it and I put it away. Because first of all, when you become angry, it makes you feel bad about yourself, and it makes you feel terrible. And secondly, just a minute, I've got to stop because I have some people who are coming to help us with an issue in our yard. Thank you all for being so patient with me. I'm back. My life is just like yours, interrupted throughout the day. But anyway, I was talking about anger, and, we all have interruptions and difficult children, and they fall apart and we fall apart. But I think that it's important for us to remember that Anger scares and pushes people away. Anger also causes people to feel guilty. And guilt, as we all know, is a poison, especially false guilt. And children raised with anger and harshness don't as easily believe that God is loving, because the way that they learn that God is loving and compassionate and slow to anger and abounding in loving kindness is by seeing it exhibited in their lives. And anger actually also releases stress hormones in our body. Now, what I want to say, because I don't want you all of us become angry at times. We all become pushed to our limits, but I wish that I had thought about it, memorized verses like I have done now, and learned just to not feel like I deserved at all moments. Oh my goodness. Isn't that just hysterical? I mean, I could have been tempted to be angry at the man who was interrupting my podcast after I thought he had already gone. He's doing some chopping in my yard. He came in just as I needed an example of not to get angry. Anyway, let's say something happens and immediately you feel either hurt or angry or, like it's not justified or nobody understands you or whatever. Okay, learn to see that rising up in you and then learn to say, I don't need to pursue this. If I light the fire of anger, it's just going to hurt me and someone else. And then if you have those verses in your mind that can lead you, then little by little, you can begin seeing that the anger is subsiding. I don't mean, you're going to feel anger at life. You're going to feel frustrated. But if you can just learn to strengthen the muscle of compassion, of humility, of gentleness, of unconditional love, learn to become stronger at that, knowing that when you get angry, it actually harms you as much as it does the person that you get angry at. Now, it's okay to feel angry about the things that in life that we see that are terrible. It's okay to be angry about things that are, we are going to feel anger. But what I'm talking about is that useless bit of anger that causes tension and stress and an unwanted legacy. And oftentimes we're angry because we're exhausted. Learning to be aware of those feelings inside of you that make you think you have a right to be angry is the starting point, as I mentioned a minute ago. When I see the feelings arising, I learn to choose to almost objectively put them aside. I don't say they're wrong. I go, okay, why am I angry? Let's look at this for a moment. The person in front of me needs grace like I need grace in my life. I need to remember that this will cause me to have terrible hormones or an ulcer or a gallbladder issue. Anger creates hurt. Go to a counselor if you need to get to the bottom of your anger. Sometimes we're angry because we've never been loved in such a way. Sometimes we don't understand that the person who has been mean or angry to us was angry before we ever got to them. We aren't the reason they're angry. They are angry all by themselves. But we do not have to give in to that anger. I think just growing older wisely means if you can move in the direction where you can have more ability to practice growing the muscle of love, just zip your lip when you feel like being angry and give yourself a place and a time to settle down. Write out what kind of a legacy you want to leave and how to move in the direction of that way. Learn to forgive. Learn to allow people, especially little ones, to grow as you needed time to grow. A lot of times children who are throwing a fit are just exhausted and need to be put to sleep. They don't need to be corrected. They don't need to be yelled at. They're just exhausted beyond their control. I remember both, especially with Nathan and with Joy. sometimes, especially, because they were the younger two, so sometimes I would drag them too long, keep them up too long. And when they would become irascible, like screaming, yelling, whatever it was, a lot of times I would just have to hold them in my arms and they would be crying until they finally fell asleep, and then I could put them asleep. And so a lot of times, the reason you get angry is because you're not understanding what's going on. Learn to stand back and put anger and criticism in their context, and gently learn to grow the muscle of patience. Is it hard? Of course, but I wish that I had learned it earlier. The fewer scars, the fewer difficulties, the fewer places you can leave in your life that cause you to feel bad about the kind of person you've been in relationship to other people, the better it is. So I'm going to read you some of my favorite verses today in hope that maybe you can memorize these and that say, God, I'm feeling angry. Show me something that will help me turn it away. But first of all, we need to just know little verses about God and what he's like, and that he wants to work himself into our lives. Psalm 86 verse 15 says, "But you, O Lord, are a God who is merciful and gracious." He shows mercy to us, and he shows graciousness to us. Slow to anger, abundant in loving kindness and truth. He is slow to anger. Let us become more and more slow to anger and irritation. That's Psalm 86:15. Another verse that I have memorized and used many times. I've repeated a lot of it to you before, but now I'm going to add the other part of the verse that has helped me. Psalm 37 verse 8 says, "Cease from anger, forsake wrath." Okay, stop it. Stop anger, forsake wrath. Do not fret. It only leads to evil doing. Isn't that interesting? Fretting, anger, wrath, it says in Psalm 37:8, lead to evil doing. And this, of course, is one that I used over and over with my children. I had them memorize it. I taught them how to use it. When you're in a situation where someone else is angry or frustrated or at their limit, Proverbs 15 verse 1 says, "A gentle answer turns away wrath." So when someone is screaming or yelling or it's not fair, you put your hand gently on their little shoulder and look in their eyes and say, "I am so sorry you're feeling frustrated. That must have made you feel terrible. I love you. Let's go reason together." That, a gentle answer, the wisdom of Proverbs says, turns away the wrath of another person. Sympathy, understanding, perspective, context. What is the context of the person? Have they been mistreated their whole lives? Then they need to see somebody who's gentle. Is the context that they are frustrated deeply, being rejected by either an employer or a person in their family or an unjust person? Then what they need from you isn't wrath back. What they need from you is gentleness, compassion, humility. Now, I know that if you're like me, maybe you feel like you are focusing on all these godly qualities at times that are different in the amount of ways that the other people in your life are focusing on them. But what I want you to understand is that, number one, to please God, you have to say, "God, show me your ways. Show me how to please you." And it pleases God for us to learn to be peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers. For us to learn to forgive 70 times 7. For us to learn to be wise. Number two, it will keep you from feeling that guilt and shame that you were out of control and that you screamed at your children or that you were harsh. And may I say here, I guess I didn't feel like I ever needed to say it, but don't be the person who hits your children ever, ever, ever. Don't react to them in any way physical. If you do, go get some help. Go to counseling. Find the source of your extreme anger. Let your hands only be used for gentleness to your children. Maybe with some of your children who are out of the box, you need to hold them closely until they can calm down, or put them in a place where they can calm down and you can calm down. But my friends, gentleness, Jesus said, I am gentle and meek. Learn from me. Number 3, okay, it also creates havoc and a legacy of bad thoughts in the person that you are reacting to. And number 4, the way of the world. I was thinking about this the other day because of different articles I've read through the years. But when a culture is going in a downward direction, it usually moves in the direction of more violence, more immorality, less valuing of human beings, more justification of inappropriate behavior. And so we might be the remnant of people who remind others that love is the foundation of influence. We might be those who give them forgiveness and gentleness and care that they've never experienced before. We go into the world as Christ followers who bring about forgiveness and light and goodness and beauty. Well, there's so much more I could say about this, and I don't want any of you to feel that because you've been angry that you need to be ashamed. You can give it to God and ask Him to forgive you and make you anew. All of us are pushed and pulled and have negative feelings in response to this unjust, difficult world. But even last week, I was in a situation with someone I love deeply, and I felt like they were entering into this pattern of blame, of accusation, of things that really aren't justified, but it's become a habit to this person that I know. And instead of judging them and saying, oh, that's not fair, I prayed and I thought, what this person needs from me right now is not reaction to their difficulty, but gentleness. I'm so sorry you're feeling frustrated, or, I understand what you're saying. And I will think about that. I will try harder, or whatever it is. And immediately I felt better that I didn't go to a place of a habit of responding. Sometimes I get my feelings hurt. I was so happy to see that our relationship didn't even need to be restored because the person just needed understanding. And, as I look at Christ, He was unjustly accused, but He did not open His mouth in retaliation. While being oppressed, He did not oppress, He did not yell, He did not scream in return. And so, my friends, the reason I'm doing this isn't, I never want any of you to feel unjustly accused. I am the participant of you with the frustrations and the way I've dealt with it in life. However, as I get older, the more I realize I wish I hadn't wasted my time, my energy on being angry. I wish I had just learned to stretch my muscle. It doesn't mean that you just give in to the immaturity of your children, but it does mean that you don't become the immature one, that you learn how to take control of the situation, how to lead the child, or how to respond to your husband in a way that doesn't further create more havoc, or a friend, and that you learn the ways of peace. Maybe I'll write a book about that someday. Anyway, it's just something that I've been thinking about, that the more I grow in it, the more grateful I am and wish that I had learned it earlier. So, my friends, I hope you have a really wonderful week. Thank you for joining me at Tea Time Tuesday. Let me know if you want us to do more materials like the planner. I'm so grateful that many of you are beginning to follow sallyclarkson.com, because that's where that and my membership are where we're going to have special resources for people who really long for more resources, because we want to be a blessing to you. I have the most amazing team. I am grateful for them. Let me pray for you today. Dear Heavenly Father, the older I get and the more I ponder Scripture and the more I ponder history and peoples and the way things go, the more I realize that your word gives us wisdom. It leads us towards peace. It grants us encouragement. It helps us to be healthy. Lord, in the midst of the chaos of our world, teach my precious friends and me to walk in peace and in the presence of the Holy Spirit, that we might not only show your light, but that we might live more abundantly ourselves as we put off the effects of the world and walk in the center of your presence and companionship with us. Thank you that you love us, that you are for us, that you are our champion. Thank you for letting us know you, Lord. Bless these precious ones with the ability to grow stronger in gentleness and in peacemaking and in love today. Give them real strength, Lord, in the midst of some very taxing situations, and help them to know your grace and your forgiveness as they come to you. We love you, Jesus, and we praise you, our Lord and Father, and in your name, amen. All right, my friends, I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye. I hope you've enjoyed our time together today and that you'll join me next week. Be sure to look for more inspiration on my blog at sallyclarkson.com. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.